And let's talk just a little bit about climate change and global warming. I'm wondering exactly what you think. Do you believe that climate change is real, number one? Do you believe it's caused by human beings, number two? And if so, what amount of money, expressed in billions, would you be willing to pay for every degree of average temperature that we can make it cool?
0. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe in warming change. I know that human activity generates heat. I know that there are emissions, but for instance, cows have emissions, obviously methane, all right? So what are we going to do? Regulate that you can't have any horses, you can't have any cows? All right. As the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Texas, I've been on the receiving end for crazy nonsense for the last 6 years coming out of the Obama administration. One being cross state line pollution rules that actually are penalizing the state of Texas for coal-fired plants in Illinois when the wind blows to the southeast and blows some of the particles in Texas. This is absolutely crazy. And that's why the state of Texas, you'll be proud to hear, believes in liberty. I believe in liberty. I'm a liberty guy. I appreciate Ron Paul's endorsement. And we've got to protect our rights, our liberties, our freedoms. And so that's why the state of Texas has sued the federal government 31 times. And I'm glad. We're actually winning a bunch of those, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm the named plaintiff in a number of those. I'm proud of that. Because we've got to stand up to this federal government that thinks differently than the majority of all of us as Texans. We consider ourselves conservatives. We consider ourselves, we want to protect our property. We believe in property rights, and this federal government does not.
Well, the same answer, $0. And I understand why, $0. I understand why Obama thinks he can change the weather, because he thinks he's God. He thinks he is the smartest person in the country. He thinks he knows better in Washington what we do in Texas. He thinks he's the one, through all of his executive orders, that Congress isn't even up to his level. So I'm not surprised he thinks he can also change the weather. First of all, when it comes to climate change, and there's been scientific arguments on both sides of the issues, but you know, if you want a tiebreaker, if Al Gore thinks it's right, you know it's wrong. You know, one of my favorite Al Gore stories is when he was running the first time, when he was running for president years ago, I believe it was the Texas Eagle, was the Amtrak train that ran somewhere in Texas. I forget the route. And they asked him a question. He was here in Texas. They said, Mr. Vice President, and they were thinking about stopping the train. I believe that was the story. What's your thought about the extinction of the Texas Eagle? And he says, I feel so badly. It's such a beautiful bird. I don't understand. He talks through his hat. And when it comes to global warming, you know why he's really behind global warming and climate change? Because he's made millions of dollars in it. It's a cottage industry for him. Climate change, if you let the Democrats and the liberals enact their programs, it will destroy jobs in this country and destroy our economy. I'll leave it in the hands of God. He's handled our climate pretty well for a long time.
Yesterday it was Oregon, today it's Pennsylvania. Would you explain to me how one judge can make a ruling and change the entire laws in a state so that some guy can marry some other guy when the people in the state have passed a referendum saying that can't happen? How does a judge have that power?
Because we have too many activist judges who believe they are God. And they believe, again, smarter than the people. And they do not. Here's the thing that really concerns me about the activist judges in cases like this. The people of Texas, for example, Republicans, Democrats, on same-sex, for example, the people of Texas have spoken in large numbers that Texas stands for marriage between a man and a woman. So whatever state it is, whatever law it might be, there's an activist judge who decides, you know, I didn't run for office, I couldn't pass any bills. He said, I'll be a judge, and I'll take more power than that whole legislature. I don't care what the people thought who elected those people, Republican or Democrat. I don't care what they said. Behind my bench, I'm going to make this decision and overturn the will of the people. And if there's one thing that has hurt this country more than anything, I would say in my lifetime, now that across the 6.0 speedometer is that too many courts have overturned what this country was founded upon and have chipped away at our Constitution piece by piece. And so we need presidents who make sure that they appoint the right people in the future, and that would be Republican presidents, to appoint strong constitutional judges who respect the document.
Here's what I'm going to do. When I came into the legislature 4 years before Dan did, one of the first things I did in 2003 is I'd made a promise to grassroots that we were going to pass Defense of Marriage Act. Marriage is one man and one woman. And I gave it to a very able young man, Todd Staples, and I worked with him when we passed that bill. Then I came back in the 2005, right after that, the 2005 session, and I said, you know, I got a bad feeling. I don't want a future legislature to change this without one heck of a lot of work. And so we put it into the state constitution. It's a constitutional amendment, and you all voted on it. Thank you very, very much for doing that. So it's in the Constitution that marriage is between one man and one woman. And so, quite frankly, Lynn, if somebody comes up and starts arguing that, it's in the Constitution. Now, we've got to fight against activists, both the activist federal government as well as judges. Nancy Boston, nice to see you. Thank you for everything you've done for Bell County and for the state. Thank you. But I'll give you a good example. It took me 6 years and fighting over 6 years to pass photo voter ID. I had to pass it 2 sessions in a row. And I am 200% sure it's constitutional because I modeled it after Indiana and Georgia, both of which had cases that went to the Supreme Court. But that hasn't stopped Barack Obama sending Eric Holder down to Texas, forum shopping, looking for a place, and he chose Corpus Christi and their liberal judges there. So they filed suit against us, but we're going to stand tall. We're going to beat them because that bill is eminently constitutional, and you deserve to know when you vote, the sanctity of your vote, that your vote's going to count and not be offset by someone else.